I wanted to introduce our panel to discuss these and other issues. I want to start with Jurģis Briedis, who is an environmental expert for Apeirons, which is the organization and society of people with disabilities and their friends. Jurģis is joining us here on stage. Welcome, Jurģis. Then we have Eero Pärgmäe, who is the Chief Commercial Officer from Tallinn Airport. Welcome, Eero. We have Heikki Lahtinen, who is the Executive Director of LIMOWA, which is the Finnish Association of Logistic Center Clusters. And we have Normunds Krūmiņš, who is President of Latvian Logistics Association. We have Veiko Haavapuu, who is simultaneously the CFO of Rail Baltica joint venture, so one of our own, but at the same time also for many years he was Chief Financial Officer at the Tallinn Group, so he will also bring the sea intermodality insights for this discussion. And I'm very happy to join up with the panel. Jurģis, allow me to start with a question posed for you. I think it was emphasized in several presentations, and of course this is a fundamental principle also for Rail Baltica. It is the principle of no one left behind. So in that sense, if we are delivering this greenfield infrastructure, how do we ensure and promote this kind of universal accessibility of Rail Baltica from different elements, both the infrastructure side, the services side, the rolling stock side, and of course, as the environmental accessibility expert, you're in the best position to help us with that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very important is to talk, that architects and builders talk with service providers, because need to understand how the service will be provided. If people, for example, if he's blind or visual impairment, how he will find his train, for example. If there will be some service, or he should find by himself. So, and that's why you have to know it before you build this, all the infrastructure, how the service will work. So that I think is very important, the beginning to know.
Jurģis, can I follow up immediately? Of course, Apeirons has also been involved in different European level projects in understanding best practice. You have also been one of the partners in the development, for example, of the 2 international stations in Latvia, including Riga Central Station. What would be your kind of insight at the moment? You know, are we going in the right direction in terms of promoting this universal accessibility?
I didn't saw the last project papers, but yeah, it looks very good, and I think it will be ieguvums.
Benefit?
Yeah, the Riga Central Station will be the benefit because we have now very old station built in 70s, and accessibility is bad, or I cannot say worse, but and now it will be big progress. The people can access the station. There will be new trains and new Rail Baltic trains, and they could travel easier to Tallinn, to Vilnius, because travel by plane is the only option now. Because if you are in wheelchair, you cannot travel by bus because it's too long. You need to relax. You cannot sit in the wheelchair for so many hours, and I think with these trains, I will provide access to go easier to other countries.
Thank you, Jurģis. And indeed, I mean, this kind of social inclusion and integration of people with reduced mobilities, with other disabilities, with special needs, it is indeed one of the benefits that we should be striving for with Rail Baltica. It's certainly something that I want to leave to my children and the generations beyond, having been part of the project that puts accessibility at the center of our development. Thank you, Jurģi. Continuing on, much was discussed today about the principle of dig once. I mean, creating these different corridor synergies. Ramiro, I think, emphasized the overall opportunity that this principle affords. Let me ask Eero to you, something that we are, of course, trying to achieve as we are connecting all 4 Baltic main airports with the Rail Baltica line. So from your perspective at Tallinn Airport, and then being in the direct proximity to the Tallinn-Ülemiste high-speed station, also the Ülemiste city redevelopment and commercial development. So how do we capture this opportunity of dig once by promoting integration between different modes and the wider commercial development in the area in Tallinn?
So, can you hear me now?
Yep.
You can. Hi, Kaspars. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting. And congratulations to you, because we first had a Rail Baltica meeting with you 10 years ago. So you have been working on this project now for 10 years. So keep that in mind. On the peak centers, yes, that's a very good topic, because in this kind of projects, peak centers tend to win more, because they just have more volume and this kind of, they attract more talent, people, everything. In Tallinn case, the Rail Baltic station will be in a very good position between the city center and the airport, and just next to the biggest office space, which is in Tallinn. And they have the building rights for the bigger number of offices what already exist in Tallinn. So there is a huge potential aerially to create this kind of one very, very good center, or even we could say good city center for Tallinn with this project. But we need to do it very wisely. We need to do it in a very good cooperation. We need to this kind of address all the issues, and it has to be user friendly. So all these things together. You were speaking about the big ones, but I just also make a note on the small ones. I'm also a big fan of the small stations around the world, around the network. But the thing is that these stations tend to be away from the small towns and villages, because that's the best place to do a corridor. And that's also very important that these small places will be connected to the railway in the best possible way. Otherwise, this railway is like 2 kilometers somewhere on the field, and people tend not to use it. So this is for the beginning. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Eero, and likewise, it's great to see you, and thanks for being with us today. And I think what you said also strongly echoes with the example that Simon Fletcher drew in the previous panel with regard to how maybe secondary cities, or maybe even places which are villages today, are then accelerated, the development is accelerated through this new connectivity. And we have plenty of opportunities across Rail Baltica, with more than 30 regional stations being planned, and also other smaller areas that will be connected, where this kind of transformation will definitely take place. Going forward, one particular challenge for Rail Baltica, as we are, of course, now proceeding into design finalization and going into high-scale construction activities, at the same time, we want to leave the doors open for any kind of connectivity for industrial and other users. So being able to branch off from the Rail Baltica arterial connection to create this kind of capillary network that will ultimately feed the Rail Baltica ecosystem. So let me start by posing this question to Heikki, as of course you have been in the center of logistics center development in Finland, also with connectivity to rail. So in your view, what are some of the recipes that we can use to ensure that major industrial locations, freight owners, industrial zones, regional freight terminals, multimodal terminals, how we can connect them into an integrated Rail Baltica ecosystem?
Yeah, thanks, Kaspars, for asking, and thanks for inviting to join this important event. Actually, I think that there is not or no easy recepts how to do this in practice, but in general it is very important to keep this as an open development, and also here from Finnish side, I think that we are very keen to see what is happening. I think that the development of Rail Baltica in general is important for several industrial stakeholders here in our country, and how to link our market into wider European and international market. So we believe that this Rail Baltica is not only economic corridor but also social and environmental corridor. So it provides several different types of benefits. I'm not directly answering to your question regarding the receipt, but if I try to a little bit comment on excellent introduction given by Ramiro Alberto Rios, I think that as he said, this is a future of transportation. This is a backbone of the transportation system of future, and this will increase the productivity of the overall system. So I think that probably openness and multimodality are the keys. So it is not only the question of this rail connection, but how to integrate it into other transportation modes and so on. And this is not an easy task to be done. So unfortunately, I do not have a receipt for you, but let's try to, or it could be as a receipt to keep this as an open collaboration and do this development activity together to activate several different types of stakeholders to create this as a common project for all of us, not only for Baltic states, but also we here in Northern Europe and for different stakeholders along the chain, shippers, logistics service providers, and so on and so on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Heikki. And just on that last point, I wanted to emphasize particularly that, of course, your presence in this panel also kind of represents the big opportunity that Rail Baltica will create also for the Finnish business community seeking to diversify its own supply chains, and of course, hopefully in the future, and by working together, and I'm very proud of our excellent working relationship with LIMOWA and many activities planned already, is that we can connect to some of your terminals that your association represents, and maybe even dream about a future physical connection between Estonia and Finland. Normunds, let me involve you on the same issue. Of course, your association represents some of the Baltic region's largest freight owners across different industries, also the local representative offices and branches of major international logistics companies. So in your view, again, trying to create this capillary network that will feed the freight traffic for Rail Baltica. So what is the right balance between focusing maybe on singular mega terminals versus a system that diversifies and tries to connect some of the key locations directly, maybe without the intermediation of a mega terminal?
Hello, colleagues. Kaspars, thank you for having me. And the short answer is that could be justified just by making some real test cases and to speak with the businesses that could be potentially interested in using Rail Baltic infrastructure and everything that's related to. Theoretically, with the help of Rail Baltica project, it's possible to provide excellent logistics and economic alternative to several existing and well-known solutions, even on the pan-European level. Alternative that could actually become also a great business opportunity for major global logistics players. But why I'm saying theoretically? Currently, we have all the necessary preconditions to make Rail Baltica as a really strong, extremely successful economic corridor that could create huge economic value for businesses, companies, and also to all countries. But however, if further isolation and fragmentation of project governance, decentralized infrastructure management on such short distances, and narrow interests just to build the railway line or just the infrastructure, if it will take place also further, unfortunately, we will lose majority of those potential economic benefits and end up with just the infrastructure project, which is okay, but definitely not even close to economic corridor. For example, we as a businesses and potential future users of Rail Baltica, for whom the project is actually made, partly we are currently not involved in the project development process from the side of Rail Baltica implementing bodies. All the calculations, cargo volume forecasts have been performed, let's say 5-7 years ago, and does not reflect today's and future reality. And let's say, however, on the other side, we have a very good cooperation with RB Rail people, with Kaspars yourself and your colleagues. And we are ready to provide this, our contribution also on the international level for this outstanding project also to project shareholders and stakeholders. And let's say particularly coming to let's say some practical steps. I will just mention one example that recently Latvian Logistics Association took part in EU co-financed project Combine, which was aimed at enhancing and share the share of combined transport in the Baltic Sea region and to make it more efficient and environmentally friendly. And combined transport is one of the economic, say, cornerstones for the cargo business in Rail Baltica project. So, and we are really glad that during the project, it's roughly 1.5 years, Latvian Logistics Association with partners involving DB Schenker, involving Stena Line, Latvian Railway, etc. We were able to go entire route from actually zero, because at that moment combined transportation in Latvia did not exist. Unfavorable infrastructure tariffs, no rolling stock, no handling equipment, no clear border crossing procedures, etc. And we went all the long route to fully operational commercial product of combined transport in nowadays. Because currently Latvian Railway daughter company LDZ Logistics is offering regular piggyback transport products between Riga, Liepāja and Ventspils, our port cities. And this experience should be definitely used to identify all possible business perspectives along the Rail Baltica line, various pilot projects along the route, calculating commercially viable tariffs. That can be done only with the involvement of those potential future users, the businesses. If we are not sitting together and putting those cases together and make all those feasibility calculations, artificially, it cannot be done.
Thank you, Normunds, and we definitely appreciate your very powerful and very frank messages, and of course that also echoes with the work that we are doing, where we are always promoting the involvement of the future users in all critical decision-making around this project, and of course also having these kind of proactive long-term developments, relationship developments that we have with the industry. Again, this is something that was also emphasized by Nick and Connor and then Simon in the previous panel, is that of course having that future user needs in mind and involving them even at the planning and design phase for such infrastructure allows us to unlock the long-term potential of that industry, and indeed not to view the project as merely an infrastructural challenge, which it is, but not limiting to that. So thanks for those insights. Going further, Veiko, this one is from you, and feel free to draw on your very extensive experiences in the maritime industry or the intermodal elements of the maritime industry with regard to how we maximize the multimodal integration of Rail Baltica. Again, it's not just a standalone silo railway line. We are looking to connect also the main seaports, inland facilities. Muuga is, of course, one important example, and from your past experience at Tallinn, what could be your recommendations for us to maximize this integration between different modes of transport?
Yes, Kaspars, thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this discussion panel. Well, I essentially believe that the passenger and cargo flows are kind of rivers. So they go where it's free and efficient to move. And I think there is a big role in setting priorities and enabling the flows in the direction where it's natural demand and a way we want these flows to move actually. So fast, safe, efficient, comfortable, and with low environmental impact. So, for example, currently large part of the cargo is transported on the north-south corridor, transport corridor by trucks and trailers. Many of them end up in ports in the city centers of Tallinn and Helsinki, at the same time creating unnecessary emissions and traffic congestions in the very city centers. So I think we need to create new transport corridors, and eventually the cargo should move more to rail and industrial areas out of the roads and city centers. So leaving more room for increased passenger flows and also enabling better living environments in the city center. So these were the topics also we handled during my time in the shipping company. Lots of attention to this. Also by creating fast and comfortable connections from the railway main station to airports, ports and city centers, I think we effectively create one integrated transport network for passenger journey. As such, so for example, when booking a plane ticket, one leg or connection could be via high-speed rail international rail network or ferry to the next country, for example. This is actually live in different countries already. So I think there is an important role of governments and local municipalities to create these transport corridors through city centers for people or through railroad port infrastructure connections for freight. So I believe the high-speed rail network is the last missing link actually in achieving such integrated infrastructure network. Yes.
Thank you, Veiko. And of course, we're very happy that with your very extensive experience also in the shipping business, we now have that competence in-house here at Rail Baltica Joint Venture, of course, as we are trying to optimize multimodal integration. Normund, I was going to ask you on the same question about the piggyback services, but I think you've nicely covered that by explaining the highly successful combined project and some of the very successful trials that you are running. So I will skip over to Eero on the air-to-rail integration side. Of course, as you know, and when we've discussed this also during today, we want to achieve this kind of seamless passenger and also small logistics items distribution on an air-to-rail intermodality. We know that airports have a very efficient collaborative decision-making system, the airport CDM, and we have been thinking that maybe this is something that the railway industry in our part of the world with Rail Baltica can take over and form the basis to integrate between air and rail, essentially railways also being part of that integrated collaborative decision-making. So what do you say about that? I mean, is that a good basis to promote better interoperability between air and rail?
Let's say this way, that I'm a simple man. I'm an economist, but I'm also a simple man, and I like simple solutions. So sometimes we tend to overthink, and then too complicated solutions can come out of it. So when I talk about the integration, I just was in Switzerland and I used a train in Zurich. And basically, for me, the best user experience was that I came off the plane, I walked, I had a signs, I could buy a ticket, I ended up on train. It all took 10 minutes. So I think we have to look from the customer perspective and make it work really for the customer. So like we have open access points for the travel planning. And in Tallinn, the distance between the train station and plane airport is very small. So we have a tram, 2 stops, and when we have a good walkway, I think it will be already good enough. So I don't think that first stage, some technical integration with airport and rail is even needed. Just make it good for the users.
Very good. Simple is good, as long as that works. So thanks, Eero, for the inspiration. One question, and we are running out of time, so unfortunately I won't be able to take many questions from Slido, but there's one, and Heikki, I think you're in the best position to chip in on this one. How will, I'm rephrasing the question a little bit, but I think the context is the same. So how do we ensure the connectivity between Rail Baltica and the emerging Northern Sea Route connections, either through Estonia and Russia or through Finland, Norway? How do we create that connectivity with the Arctic corridor and ultimately the Northern Sea Route to Far East, to Asia and Far East?
Yeah, actually, I'm participating this panel from city of Oulu, so I'm here relatively north already, close to Swedish border too, and there are lots of developments in Swedish side, always also there in Norway, and I believe that Rail Baltica could be important for them too. If I try to answer this question by referring to Veiko's comment regarding this multimodal link and city centers. So I believe that just now, if we come into practical and in detailed level, there is a little bit challenge both in Tallinn and especially in Helsinki city center, that we have a lot of this passenger and especially freight flows through the city centers. Which cause some harm, but on the other hand, we here in Finland side, we are very happy that we have so high frequency of maritime transportation between Finland and Estonia, and therefore, Kaspars, for your question, how to ensure the link between these market areas, I think that it is not only that we have cheap and reliable link, but also have to have enough high frequency. So therefore, I hope that and when we are increasing and planning to have this multimodal link, probably via Muuga to Vuosaari Harbor and then up to north. I think that there's, of course, it is only one detail, but I think that we also need enough frequent ships there. Of course, these train connections, they are probably not so tight that some other transportation between Finland and Estonia, but I believe that it could be one key here that we have to have, let's say, several times per day these shipments. So goods coming from Rail Baltica, they have enough time to be connected in other transshipments there up to north and so on. So I believe that the frequencies need also to be added there in multimodality.
Fantastic.
I'm sure if I not answer to directly your question, but
that's okay. This is very, very, very valuable. I was wondering though, why is it so dark outside your window? But you're in Oulu. But then again, it's also dark here. So, yeah, and thanks very much for joining us. I wish I could ask so many more questions, but we've run out of time. So I wanted to end, Jurģi, with you again, wrapping up on the accessibility. Sometimes there's the kind of the very obvious focus in terms of accessibility is on reduced mobility, and maybe sometimes elements related to visual vision or hearing impairment are maybe given second role. So in your view, given that Rail Baltica transforms stations, some of which are new stations, transforms the wider areas, do we have a good balance with Rail Baltica for these different accessibility levels, both in terms of mobility and beyond?
Yes. Like I said, I didn't saw the last papers, but there will be guidelines for blind people to either find a way, and there will be signs, and I hope there will be induction loops or for people who using hearing devices. So yeah, and you're right, because sometimes they forget, because it's not very expensive sometimes to mark some steps. That's why maybe they are forget it. So because all the time they think about ramps and elevators and how to get people in wheelchair or with crutches in the train. But with those disabilities, sometimes they are forget.
Are there any kind of emerging technologies that can be used to facilitate access for visually and hearing impaired people?
Yes, there is, but we should understand also the situation in Latvia, like how people in Latvia live, how they are taught how to navigate the house, and that's why we cannot always take like some experience from Finland, for example, because sometimes we don't have these technical
Level skills?
Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you, Jurģi. Thank you, all the panelists. I think this was a very, very interesting discussion. With that, we conclude the Economic Corridor session of this Rail Baltica Industry Day.